Okay, so we're streaming live, it says. Let me just see if I can get it up on the page so we know if somebody's there and they're making any comments. Yep, we are streaming live. So, wow, woohoo, I'm so excited to see you. So, I always love it when we chat. So it's just so good because you're just so amazing, Ian, you know, and you have so much knowledge to share, and you're so, you know, you're so generous with your time to share about the law, which, you know, as business owners is just so important that everybody's aware that, you know, I know from my legal studies that I did when at uni that, you know, if you don't know, that's no excuse, you know, if you make a mistake. So you really need to be informed, hey, about what's out there. So, yeah, so I've known you now for about, I don't know, 3 years.
Couple years.
Yeah.
2-3 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it feels like no time at all because it's been fun, but at the same time, I feel like I've always known you because, you know, you and the others, we all click so well.
Yeah. So it's just amazing. So it's just been, it's a lovely group, a lovely journey. So, yeah. So you're here today just to give us some tips on some of the common blunders that people make.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, the have made, can make, still making all the time. And I appreciate you letting me talk to your folks for a few minutes. And it's so great to see you. I was just talking with my wife, Heather, who you know, just a little while ago, and talking about how we take it for granted now, let tools like Zoom and Facebook let us keep in touch with people around the world, you know, and in previous years, you and I would have made friends at some conference and then never seen each other again. And now we get to be part of this ongoing community that's just so amazing. So no, I love it. I'm very grateful. Yeah. And I do, you know, what I do is a little bit like you do, different subject matter, but I help people kind of on that back end and foundational business stuff, you know, stuff that's a little, produces some anxiety. It's a little mysterious, generates some fear, right? Complexity. You know, whether they're thinking about IT or the law, it's like, man, I just want to focus on my mission. I have my mission. I have the product I develop. I have the things I do for people. I have the ways I serve people. I have the good I'm doing in the world. Man, can I just focus on that and just not worry about how my IT is going and not worry about the law? Unfortunately, you can't just not worry about that. That stuff isn't going to take care of itself. So just like you help people with the back end IT stuff, I help them with the legal side. And you're right. I mean, like you said, ignorance of the law is no excuse. And I get if you're at a point where you're like, I don't know, or even I don't know, but I don't know. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying I don't know. I don't know is actually a very empowering place to be. It means you're ready to learn and grow. Yeah. You know, you have to be able to say, I don't know, if you're going to learn and grow, whether it's yourself and self-improvement or your business or how you serve your clients, you have to be able to say, I don't know. But then again, you have to do something about that I don't know. You can't just sit there with, well, I don't know. Because if you get in trouble, some judge in a court of law is not going to care. They're just not going to care that you didn't know. You're expected to know as a citizen of a civilized country. It's your job. And so in our businesses, you know, especially those of us who are real heart-centered and just trying to do a lot of good in the world, there's any number of blunders we make. But I just thought I'd give your folks tips on a couple of the more common blunders. You know,
right. Thank
and yeah, definitely. And I could go on and on all this, but you know, I'll try to give a couple, you know, actionable ones right now. One is just with the use of contracts. Like, it's amazing to me how often people forget to basically put contracts in writing. They want to rely on, you know, a handshake, a verbal exchange, an email back and forth, and those all do create a contractual relationship. You can have a verbal contract. It doesn't have to be in writing. But if it's verbal, then there's nothing to back it up. It's just he said, she said. If there's a disagreement, there's no way to resolve it, right? And then the court always ends up resolving it against you as the business owner. Any sort of verbal agreement between you and a client, if there's a disagreement, the court is almost always going to resolve that in the client's favor.
Really?
Because business owner, it's your job to draft the terms of the agreement, which means that anytime there's ambiguity, it goes against you. That's how the law works. If you're the one who's, so, you know, you got to put this stuff in writing. And it's even more important if the people are family or friends. To me, putting the contract in writing with people you know and care about is how you protect the relationship. That's where things go sour, is when you try to have verbal agreements with folks you really care about. You know, you think, well, we don't need a written contract. You know, this person never stabbed me in the back. But of course, you would never go into business with someone, whether a business partner, a client, a vendor, whatever, you would never go into business with someone if you expected them to stab you in the back later. because you don't,
you wouldn't.
Our courts are full of cases where people are stabbing each other in the back, right?
Yeah.
So one thing I tell my clients sometimes is nobody ever stabs you in the back until they do. And now, if you haven't prepared, it's late, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
A couple of tips about your contract. One, make sure it's complete. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to mean you're putting together this long document that you're emailing people and having them sign and send back to you. It could be as simple as if people are purchasing your products or services that they have to, they have to check off that they've agreed to your terms and conditions. That could be your contract. Mm-hmm. But whatever form your contract takes, whether it's an actual document you send back and forth, whether it's terms and conditions, make sure it's complete. Don't leave things out. Don't assume that people know things. So one example is, for me, it's amazing how often people have a contract that doesn't actually describe the services being provided.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it happens all the time. It's like they skip that part, but that should be like the first section of the contract. These are the services I'm providing you, and this is how much you're paying me for it. That should be like the first two parts. People skip those all the time. And then you're left with this document that's supposed to be the sole agreement. It's supposed to be the one place you look to reference it. And nothing in there talks about what services you're providing, which means now you have to go back on whatever verbal agreement you had with people, or you have to, divine it from email marketing sequences. So don't assume that stuff. Make sure it's complete. And then the other thing about the contract is once you've filled it up with all the stuff that has to be in there to make sure you have a complete, then just stop. Just stop. Resist the temptation to add what I call fluff in your contract. Leave out the fluff. And fluff would be things like descriptions of your history, your professional background, talking about how much you love your clients and love your work, your marketing language. That stuff is all fine for your marketing. Doesn't belong in your legal contract, because once you put it in the contract, it's going to be enforced. So let's say something, and I have seen this one almost verbatim happen over and over and over again. A contract between a coach or a healer or a therapist or somebody and their client, and the contract will say something like, you're going to get my 100% best efforts all the time. Well, do you want that phrase to be legally enforceable in a court of law? Your 100% best efforts all the time? What if the client calls you at 3 a.m. and you don't answer it because it's 3 a.m? Well, did you just give them your 100% best efforts? 3 a.m. is all the time.
Yes. Yes.
Not answering the phone is certainly not your 100% best effort. And I've had some people say, well, no judge would actually enforce that language. To which I reply, are you willing to bet your entire business on that?
Wow. Yes.
I mean, how do you know a judge won't enforce it? Quite frankly, if I were a judge, I would enforce that language. Nobody made you put it in there. You chose to. If you didn't want it in the contract, you shouldn't have put it in there. You put it in, so I'm going to enforce it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So fill the contract up, make sure it's complete with everything it needs to fully describe the transaction, and then stop and resist the temptation to say anything else. So, I could go on and on. I have whole courses on contracts, but those are kind of two things that, can get people started with it.
Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting, isn't it? I think that we don't realize sometimes what we say in contracts. So do you think an email, like if you had a conversation, like, you had a call, the client just was going to then take up your offer, whatever it happened to be, that an email is enough, this is what we just agreed on, this is how much it is, that's would be enough?
That's better than nothing. Right? Because then at least you have a written record. Okay, yes, we just got off the phone call. I'm writing to confirm this is what we talked about. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z for you, and you're going to pay me this amount, and here's how you're going to pay me, and here's how long we do this over. That's better than nothing. At least you have that in writing now. Yeah. And the person's had a chance to respond to it. And if they don't respond to it, it's harder for them to later claim that there was a misunderstanding because they got the email and they could have responded and they chose not to, right? Yeah. It's better if they reply and say yes, but even if not, you have something. So that's better than nothing. But what that does not do is include all the other things you need in your contract, like provisions that describe confidentiality. What are you going to keep confidential and how are you going to do it? What's not confidential? Is there a limitation on liability? Are they waiving the right to sue you? Under what circumstances? What country's law governs the contract? what country or state or province law governs the contract. What happens if part of the contract is ruled invalid? What happens to the rest of the contract? So that's I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that needs to go in there, and that sort of email would not do it. And your email could say, this is what we talked about, and in addition, here are my terms. But if they don't really reply and accept those terms aren't really going to become enforceable.
Oh, interesting.
You know, so that's why it's better to have an agreement that people, number one, if it's a big ticket item, you're doing a lot of intimate service, it's better to have an agreement they sign. Or if it's more of a course or program with lots of folks, at least have terms and conditions that they have to agree to before they can go through with the purchase. And then they're agreeing to all those terms. Because if they don't agree to the terms, you can't just impose those terms on someone unilaterally.
No.
They have to agree to them.
Yeah, you know what? You just reminded me of something. I remember when we had one of our sessions that you mentioned that, you know, in America, that the different states have different laws. You know, so as a coach, healer, therapist, you know, there are certain, every state has a different law. So you have to be aware of what you can and can't say, because certain words, I remember you saying certain words as a therapist you can't say. For example, so you wouldn't want that, for example, in your contract, because that's, you know, that's saying those particular things. Yes.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to put something in your contract. Let's say you're a you know, a spiritual healer. You don't want anyone to confuse that with licensed medical work, right? Especially if you're not a licensed doctor. If you're not a licensed doctor, you're not supposed to be practicing medicine. So you don't want to put anything in your contract that talks about healing or curing, or makes it sound like licensed medical work, you know, or if you're a coach that helps people with their unconscious mindset blocks, you don't want to put anything in your contract that makes it sound like psychology, because then you can get hit for practicing psychology. And if you're not a licensed psychologist, you're in big trouble. And then, like you said, every locality has different laws on that. So every country has different laws, and then within countries, like the different US states have laws. I believe in Australia, the different states have laws too on this. Like, well, what is psychology? Well, it depends. Every place defines it a little bit different. What is licensed medicine? Again, every place defines it a little bit different. And then the tricky part too is that when it comes to those kind of laws, it's the law of the jurisdiction where your client lives that applies.
Really?
Not the law where you are.
So that's interesting. So then as a therapist or a coach, you need to be aware of the laws of all, wherever your clients are. That's
exactly.
key, isn't it? Especially since they're all different.
Yeah, so it can get pretty tricky. So, I mean, I often try to help people get set up so if you're complying with the stricter laws, then we figure you're probably okay on the less strict ones. And, you know, there's certain kind of rules of thumb you can do to make sure you're not hit for practicing therapy without a license, practicing medicine without a license. You know, business coaches tend to run up against, sometimes they're caught for practicing law without a license, right? They figure, hey, they're a business coach, and there are certain laws about businesses, and my clients should know about those. Well, all of a sudden you're giving legal advice. Well, you're not a licensed attorney. You're not supposed to be giving legal advice, you know? So even right there, people forget that there are these restrictions. And you certainly want to be aware of the restrictions where you're living. That's where you're in the most danger, because it's where you live. Your government could come down hard on you, and places nearby. It's a little less critical to know the restrictions on the other side of the world. So it's not like, for example, if you're caught practicing medicine without a license with a client who lives in Canada, Australia is not going to arrest you and put you on a plane and fly you to Canada to be extradited to face trial for practicing medicine. You know, they're just not going to do that as a practical matter. That doesn't mean you should flout the law or ignore it. You should still be aware, you know, but the danger becomes a little bit less acute if you're thousands of miles away, just as a practical matter.
Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting, isn't it? You know, and I was just thinking then, like, oh my gosh, you know, so that applies, I suppose, to the financial stuff. If you're a business coach and you're giving some sort of financial advice, not as in what to, not what to do with your money, but just how to do things or whatever, then that could then be interpreted that you're being like an accountant, that you're actually giving, or a financial broker, or a, you know.
Yeah, no, totally good point. Because in a lot of places, you have to have a government license to be a financial advisor. You know, or a broker and stuff like that. So yeah, you have to be. The thing is, if you know, having a professional license is a great thing to do. If you're a lawyer, doctor, attorney, financial advisor, therapist, whatever it might be, having a license is great. It gives you, it opens up how you're allowed to serve, how, more ways you can earn money, more ways you can help people and do good in the world. Not having a license doesn't mean you cannot operate. You still have gifts and talents. The world still needs you. There's still lots of ways you can help. But whatever it is you're doing without a license, there is some corresponding licensed profession that's similar to it. And that's what you have to be aware of, right? So if you're a relationship coach, then the corresponding licensed profession is marriage and family therapy. If you're a coach that helps people with transformation with their subconscious mindset, then the corresponding licensed field is psychology. If you're a healer, then the corresponding license field is medicine. So whatever it is you do, there's some professional license that's analogous to what you do, and that's the one that you want to be careful of not tripping over. So you don't have to be careful of all of them. If you're a relationship coach, I'm not really worried about you getting hit for practicing medicine without a license or practicing law without a license, you know. So you have to pay attention to which one is analogous to what you do.
Wow, that's great advice, Ian. I love it. Thank you. That's really, really good. Yeah. I think people that are watching will get a lot out of this, because it's really important stuff, you know.
Oh, good. I hope so. And this is stuff, that's why I say these are common blunders. People forget about this stuff. And you go out and, you know, I just want you to be able to serve your clients worry-free, quite frankly. Like, I don't tell people this stuff to get them stressed out and worried. I don't want you to stop doing your business. That's not the point. The point here is I want you to do your business. I want you to make money. I want you to live a great lifestyle. And I want you to do a lot of good in the world and serve people and help people while you're at it, you know. And you can do that, and you can do it relatively risk-free, and well, not completely risk-free. There's never zero risk in the law, you know that, but you can do it with minimal risk, and you don't have to worry, and you can, if you have that legal foundation set up, that's the thing about learning this stuff. If you learn it, if you feel empowered in this area of the law, you know, then your business is set up, and then the law, so for some people, the law is like this brick wall. You know, I'm running along my business and sooner or later, oh my gosh, I'm going to crash into that brick wall of the law. No, the law, if you get empowered with knowledge, it's the wind in your sails. It's driving you forward. It's part of what's building it. And it's part of the exciting part of your business. So that's what I try to help folks with.
Oh, yeah. No, that's, yeah. And that's important, isn't it? Like, it's just that awareness. Awareness is that first key of everything. You know, you have to have that awareness. So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the same with you with the IT stuff, you know. If you get empowered in it, then you feel better about it and you're using it to drive your business forward.
That's exactly right. So, yeah. So you've got a couple of, well, not a couple, a number of webinars coming up that you can, so I'm going to talk about them because I know that you've got them, you were saying, in all different time zones so that people all over the world will be able to attend, which is really wonderful.
Yeah, I try to give folks options. I'm in California in the United States, but, you know, I have clients all over North America, all over the world. You know, I've had folks in Europe, Australia, all over the place. So I like to run my webinars. Well, for number one, they're free because I'm trying to help people with as much content as I can. So my webinars are always free, and I always teach them live because they generate a lot of questions. This is tough material. I get it. If you're learning it for the first time, it's tough material. You're going to have questions, and that's totally fine. So I offer them live, and so that means I like to schedule a lot of different dates and times. So if you have a busy schedule, if you're in different time zones, hopefully there's at least one of those. Right now I have 6 scheduled over the next couple of weeks. I may add 1 or 2, but I'm going to have at least 6 of them. They're staggered at different dates and times so that hopefully everybody can find one that works for their time zone and their schedule. So, and we're going to talk about suiting up with layers of legal armor. And we're going to talk about how when you run a business, you're a little bit like a medieval knight on a battlefield, right? And those knights would go out on that battlefield and they could not afford to ignore the danger. It was deadly. It was right in front of them, shiny swords and arrows and people screaming, right? They could not, if they ignored that danger, they were dead. So they understood the importance of having lots of layers of armor, and they had lots of layers of overlapping armor because any good opponent can pierce 1 layer of armor. So you had to have lots of different layers of overlapping armor, and they understood the importance of that. Well, it's a little bit like running a business. The danger is not so obvious. There's no screaming barbarian with a sword who's about to slice you open, but the danger is just as real and will kill your business if you're not aware of it and if you're not trained for what to look for. So I talk about what are the layers of legal armor you need and how do you use them properly? How do you overlap them? How do you make sure you're protected so that that risk is minimal? But more importantly, with that minimal risk, now you can go out there and get excited, you know, go to battle in your business, go to battle for your clients, have fun with it because you've got that taken care of and you get excited. So yeah, we're going to learn up with the layers of legal armor. So Angie will drop a link for you guys if you want to register for that. So my first one is actually about an hour from now. I'm pretty excited about, but we still have a.
Okay, yeah. So I'll pop it in the comments below, a link, so that people can then click on it and register. And yeah, find out all the good juicy stuff that you have to share with the world, which is just amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, we try to keep it fun and interesting, and you know, more important, really empowering. You know, knowledge is power in this stuff. So I'm trying to get you guys empowered so you can feel good about it, not have to worry about it anymore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Ian, for coming on and sharing with everybody, you know, this, because I think it's been awesome. Like, it's been so much really great content today, you know, that people need to be aware of. And it's the little things, isn't it, that makes a difference. We just have to tweak little things here and tweak little things there. And it's not doesn't have to be a big, scary thing that you have to do. It's just
no, it really doesn't. It doesn't have to be a giant production. Yeah, and take care of one thing at a time. You know, some people, they don't want to start their business until they have every little legal thing taken care of. And I'm like, no, start your business, and we'll work on the legal stuff as you go along. We'll break it down. It's going to be one piece at a time, and every little piece you can accomplish, and you feel good about it. We will move on to the next one, just like anything else in your business. Don't let it stop you.
Exactly. That's the same with the IT. It's exactly the same.
Yes.
It's like, you don't have to have every system. You don't have to have a website. You don't have to have it all set up. You just have to start. And that's it, really. Just start. And and then it grows.
Absolutely.
You do that one thing, and then you've got that done, and then you do the next thing, and then you do the next thing. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're totally right. I totally agree. Because that's how, when I started my business at first, I was letting that stop me. I felt like, well, my website isn't good enough and my email doesn't. And finally I just said, no, I just got to do it. I just got to get out there and do it. Because in the meantime, I'm not helping anybody. And that's the whole point, is to be helping people, right?
Absolutely. And isn't that statement that we just love, you know, imperfect action is better than no action. And it's true. Yeah. You just got to keep moving forward. And and just do it, even if it isn't perfect.
Even if it isn't perfect, and if you make a mistake, so what? You fix it. You know,
that's it.
I mean, big deal. Make a mistake and fix it. That's what we do.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us.
Absolutely.
And we'll look forward to talking to you again soon, because I know you've got so much juicy stuff to share. So thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Angie. Really appreciate it. Bye, everybody.
Bye.